My sister threw a huge party for her dog on my birthday and expected me to be grateful for the leftover cake. I spent 32 years being the good daughter, the reliable one, the one who showed up early to help set up, stayed late to clean up, and never complained when she was overlooked. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself that being invisible meant I was dependable, and being dependable was a virtue. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being a person to my family and became a convenience, a resource they could draw from without ever replenishing. The day I turned 32, I finally understood the full extent of my invisibility. My parents and sister threw an elaborate party complete with custom decorations, a professional photographer, and a 3-tiered cake for my sister's French bulldog. My birthday wasn't just forgotten, it was replaced. And when I showed up, they offered me the leftovers, like I should be grateful for the scraps. The invitation arrived in a pastel envelope with a paw print stamp on the back. I remember thinking it was odd. I didn't have a dog, and none of my friends had mentioned getting one. I opened it in my kitchen, standing over the counter where I'd just finished grading a stack of essays, and read the words that would change everything. You are cordially invited to Biscuit's first birthday party. Join us for an afternoon of fun, treats, and celebration as our precious French bulldog turns 1. Please RSVP by Friday. I stared at the card for a long moment. Biscuit was my sister Vanessa's new dog, a small, wrinkly creature with enormous ears and an even bigger personality. Vanessa had gotten him about 8 months ago, and he'd quickly become the center of her universe. She posted photos of him constantly, dressed him in tiny sweaters, and referred to herself as his mommy with a straight face. I'd rolled my eyes at it, the way I rolled my eyes at most things Vanessa did, but this was different. This was a formal invitation to a dog's birthday party, with a 3-tiered cake. The date on the invitation stopped me cold. May 15th, my birthday, my 32nd birthday. The date I'd already made plans for. Plans that involved a quiet dinner with my parents, maybe some flowers, and the small, familiar comfort of being acknowledged by the people who were supposed to love me. I called my mother that evening. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright and cheerful. "Avery, honey, did you get the invitation? Isn't it adorable?" Vanessa went all out. "She's been planning this for weeks." "Mom," I said slowly, "the party is on my birthday." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could hear my mother's brain processing, connecting the dots. "Oh," she said finally, her voice dropping a register. "Oh, I suppose it is. Well, honey, you know how much this means to Vanessa. Biscuit is like her baby. She's been so excited about this party." I'm sure you understand. I did understand. I understood that my birthday had been subsumed by a dog's birthday, and my mother was treating it like a minor inconvenience. I understood that Vanessa's whims would always take precedence over my needs. I understood that I was the low-maintenance daughter, the one who could be counted on to be reasonable and flexible and never make a fuss. I'd been understanding for 32 years, and I was tired. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice calm, "I was hoping we could do something for my birthday. Maybe dinner? Just the 4 of us?" There was another pause. "Well, honey, we could do something after the party. I'm sure Vanessa wouldn't mind if we had a quick dinner afterward. You could even have some of the leftover cake if there's any." Leftover cake from my sister's dog's birthday party. That was what my mother was offering me. "Actually," I said, "I think I'll skip the party. I can celebrate my birthday on my own." "Avery, don't be like that," my mother said, her voice taking on that wheedling tone she used when she wanted me to be reasonable. "You know Vanessa didn't mean to forget your birthday. She's just so busy with Biscuit. He's been having digestive issues, and the vet said—" "I don't want to hear about Biscuit's digestive issues, Mom," I said, my voice coming out sharper than I intended. "I want to hear that my birthday matters to you, that I matter to you." There was a long silence. When my mother spoke again, her voice was cold. "Avery, you're being dramatic. Of course you matter, but you're an adult now. You don't need a big production for your birthday. Vanessa is just excited. And I don't think it's fair to rain on her parade just because you're feeling sensitive." Sensitive. That's what they called it when I had feelings. That's what they called it when I dared to express disappointment. I'd been sensitive my entire life, the quiet, emotional one who took things too personally. I'd internalized that label so deeply that I'd started to believe it myself. Maybe I was being dramatic. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I should just let it go, the way I always did. But something inside me snapped. Something small and quiet, like a thread finally breaking under too much weight. "Mom," I said, my voice steady, "I'm not going to the party. I'm going to spend my birthday with people who actually want to celebrate me. And if that makes me dramatic, then I guess I'm dramatic." I hung up before she could respond. For the next week, I didn't hear from my parents or Vanessa. I'd expected them to call, to apologize, to make some effort to bridge the gap, but they didn't. They were too busy planning Biscuit's party, coordinating the decorations and the pet photographer and the custom-made dog-friendly cake. I saw the progress on social media. Vanessa posted daily updates, photos of party favors, a sneak peek of Biscuit's birthday outfit, a video of him practicing his party tricks. My mother commented on every single post with heart emojis and enthusiastic praise. I muted Vanessa's account. I couldn't bear to see another post. My friends noticed something was wrong. Allison, my best friend since college, called me one evening and asked if I was okay. I broke down on the phone, telling her everything. The invitation, my mother's coldness, the complete lack of acknowledgement that I even existed. Allison listened without interrupting. And when I was done, she said exactly what I needed to hear. "Your family is insane," she said. "And you deserve so much better than this. I'm throwing you a birthday party, just us. No dogs allowed." So that was the plan. Allison would host a small gathering at her apartment on my birthday. Just a few close friends, some good food, and the kind of genuine affection I'd been craving. I felt a small bloom of excitement for the first time in weeks. Maybe this birthday wouldn't be a total disaster after all. On the morning of May 15th, I woke up with a sense of peace. The sun was streaming through my window, and I could hear birds chirping outside. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat on my balcony, watching the city wake up around me. Today was going to be a good day. I was going to spend it with people who actually saw me. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mother. "Hope you're having a good day, honey. Biscuit's party is at 2 sao. We'd love to see you if you change your mind. There will be lots of food and cake. You could bring a gift if you'd like. Vanessa registered at PetSmart." I stared at the message. A gift for a dog on my birthday. The audacity was so breathtaking that I almost laughed. I set my phone down and didn't respond. By noon, I'd forgotten about the text entirely. I was getting ready for Allison's party, carefully choosing my outfit, doing my makeup, feeling lighter than I had in months. My phone buzzed again and again. More texts from my mother, then from my father, then from Vanessa. I ignored them all. I wasn't going to let them ruin my day. The party at Allison's was wonderful. There were balloons and streamers, and a cake that actually said "Happy Birthday, Avery" in beautiful script. My friends sang off-key and made me laugh until my stomach hurt. I opened thoughtful presents, a book I'd been wanting, a gift card to my favorite restaurant, a cozy blanket that Allison had knitted herself. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. I felt valued. I felt like I belonged somewhere. But a small part of me couldn't stop thinking about what my family was doing at that exact moment. I imagined them at Vanessa's house, surrounded by balloons and party hats, cooing over a dog in a little bow tie. I imagined them laughing and taking photos and completely forgetting that I existed. I'd convinced myself I didn't care, but the ache in my chest told a different story. Around 4 o'clock, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a video message from Vanessa. Against my better judgment, I opened it. The video showed the party in full swing. There were at least 30 people in Vanessa's backyard, all of them gathered around a small table where Biscuit sat in a tiny party hat. He looked confused but cheerful, his tongue lolling out as he sniffed at a plate of dog-friendly cupcakes. Vanessa was holding a microphone, her voice high and excited. "And now it's time for the cake. Biscuit, are you ready? Say cheese!" Everyone laughed as Vanessa produced a 3-tiered cake covered in pink frosting. It was enormous, easily big enough for a human wedding, with Biscuit's name piped in gold letters across the top. The crowd sang "Happy Birthday" to the dog, their voices rising in enthusiastic harmony. I watched the video with a strange, hollow feeling. Somewhere in the background, I caught a glimpse of my mother. She was wiping tears from her eyes, her face full of love and pride. She'd never looked at me that way, not once in 32 years. The video ended with Vanessa cutting the cake and smearing a bit of frosting on Biscuit's nose. The crowd erupted in applause. I closed the app and set my phone down, my hands trembling. Allison must have noticed my expression, because she came over and sat beside me. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "Want to tell me what happened?" I showed her the video. Allison watched it in silence, her face growing darker with each passing second. When it ended, she looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, a mixture of fury and heartbreak. "Avery," she said slowly, "your family is completely and utterly insane. And I'm going to say something that might be hard to hear, but you need to hear it." I braced myself. "What?" "They don't deserve you," she said. "They've spent your entire life making you feel like you don't matter. And you do. You matter so much. You're kind and smart and funny and loyal. You're the best person I know. And if they can't see that, then they don't get to have you." The tears I'd been holding back finally spilled over. I cried for the birthday I'd lost and for all the birthdays before it. I cried for the little girl who'd tried so hard to be good enough. I cried for the woman I'd become, a woman who'd been trained to accept invisible scraps and call them love. "You're right," I said, my voice shaky. "They don't deserve me." Allison hugged me tightly. "So stop giving yourself to them," she whispered. "Take it back, all of it. You're allowed to put yourself first." I held on to her and let myself cry. And when the tears finally stopped, something inside me shifted, a resolve that I'd never felt before. I was done being invisible. I was done being the reliable one who got nothing in return. My phone buzzed again. Another text from my mother. "Great party. Biscuit loved the cake. There's leftovers if you want to come by. I saved you a slice. XOXO leftover cake from a dog's birthday party. On my birthday, my mother was offering me the crumbs, and she expected me to be grateful." I looked at the message for a long moment. Then I typed my response. "Happy birthday to me." I closed the app and turned off my phone. The evening stretched before me, full of laughter and friendship and love, and for the first time in 32 years, I was ready to let go of the family that had never truly held me. Tomorrow, I would deal with the fallout. Tomorrow, I would decide how to move forward. But tonight, I was going to celebrate myself, because I deserved it. I'd always deserved it. I just hadn't known how to claim it. I woke up the morning after my birthday feeling lighter than I had in years. The sun was streaming through my window, and for a moment, everything felt normal. Then the memories came flooding back. The party, the video, the text about leftover cake. But instead of the familiar ache of disappointment, I felt something else. Something that felt a lot like freedom. I'd turned off my phone the night before, and I hadn't turned it back on. I didn't want to see the messages I knew would be waiting. I didn't want to hear my mother's excuses or Vanessa's defensive explanations. I wasn't ready for that conversation. I wasn't sure I'd ever be ready. I spent the morning doing things I loved. I went for a long walk in the park near my apartment, watching the leaves rustle in the breeze and feeling the warmth of the sun on my face. I stopped at a small cafe I'd always meant to try and ordered a latte and a pastry, savoring every bite. I wandered through a bookstore and bought myself a novel I'd been wanting to read for months. It felt strange being so intentionally kind to myself. I'd spent so many years putting everyone else first that I'd forgotten what it felt like to prioritize my own happiness. By the time I got home, it was early afternoon. I finally turned on my phone and the flood of notifications was overwhelming. 17 missed calls, 23 text messages, and a string of voicemails. Most were from my mother. A few were from my father. Vanessa had sent a series of increasingly angry texts. The first few apologetic, and the last ones hostile. I started with the voicemails. My mother's voice was strained in the first one, trying to sound cheerful. "Avery, honey, we missed you at the party. It was such a wonderful time. Biscuit loved his cake. I hope you're not still upset. Call me when you get this." The second voicemail was less cheerful. "Avery, it's your mother. I've been trying to reach you all day. Your father and I are worried. Please call me back." The third voicemail had an edge to it. "Avery, this is getting ridiculous. You're an adult. You can't just ignore your family because you didn't get your way. Call me back." The fourth voicemail was the worst. "Avery, I don't know what's gotten into you. We've always been there for you. We've always supported you, and you're treating us like this over a birthday party? I raised you better than this. You need to apologize to Vanessa and your father and me for your behavior. This is unacceptable." My mother was demanding that I apologize. For being hurt, for being forgotten, for daring to have feelings about being treated like an afterthought. I stared at the phone, disbelief washing over me. She'd rewritten the narrative completely. In her version of events, I was the villain. I was the one who'd been unreasonable. I was the one who'd caused the rift by not showing up to a party for a dog. I scrolled through Vanessa's texts. The first few were apologetic. "Hey sis, sorry you missed the party. It was so fun. Wish you could have been there. Love you." The later texts were different. "Avery, seriously? You're ignoring me now. I didn't do anything wrong. It was just a party for my dog. You're being so dramatic." The last one was a direct hit. "You know what? I'm done apologizing. You've always been jealous of me, and this just proves it. You can't stand that I'm happy. Get over yourself, jealous of her. The woman who threw birthday parties for her dog and expected everyone to fawn over her. The woman who'd never had to work for anything in her life. The woman who'd taken my birthday and turned it into a spectacle for a French bulldog. I was jealous of that." I laughed. It was a hollow, disbelieving laugh, but it was a laugh nonetheless. Vanessa had no idea who I was. She'd never bothered to find out. And I was finally, truly done caring. I didn't respond to anyone. Not that day, not the next. I needed space. I needed time to figure out who I was without the weight of my family's expectations pressing down on me. The next week, I went to therapy. I'd been seeing Dr. Morrison for about 6 months, mostly for work-related stress and general anxiety. But this was different. This was about untangling the knot of family dysfunction that had been choking me for 32 years. "Tell me about your childhood," Dr. Morrison said. "What was it like growing up with Vanessa?" I thought about it for a long moment. "Vanessa was always the center of attention," I said slowly. "She was louder than me, more dramatic. She demanded attention, and my parents gave it to her. I was the quiet one. I was the easy one. I learned early on that if I was good, if I was helpful, if I didn't cause any problems, I'd get some attention too. Scraps. But it was better than nothing. And what did you get from your parents? What did they give you?" I blinked, realizing I didn't have an answer. "I don't know," I admitted. "I guess approval? They were proud of me for being responsible, for being dependable. They'd say things like, 'We can always count on Avery.' But I don't think they ever really saw me. They just saw what I could do for them." Dr. Morrison nodded. "That's a painful realization, but it's an important one. You've spent your whole life being the responsible one, the reliable one, and you've gotten very little in return. Is that a pattern you want to continue?" I shook my head. "No, I'm done. I'm so done." "Then what are you going to do about it?" It was a good question, a hard question. I spent the next week trying to figure out the answer. I started with small changes. I stopped checking my phone obsessively. I stopped picking up every time my mother called. I let myself feel my anger without immediately trying to suppress it. I told myself it was okay to be furious. It was okay to be hurt. I didn't have to be the understanding one anymore. I also started journaling. I'd never been good at keeping a journal, but something about this situation demanded to be written down. I filled pages with my thoughts, my frustrations, my hopes for the future. I wrote about the person I wanted to become, someone who set boundaries, who demanded respect, who didn't settle for scraps. I wrote about the family I wished I had, and the family I actually had, and I wrote about what it would mean to walk away. The first time my mother showed up at my apartment unannounced, I almost caved. She stood on my doorstep with a grocery bag of my favorite snacks, her face arranged in an expression of maternal concern. "Avery, honey, I was so worried about you. You haven't been answering your calls. I brought you some things. Can we talk?" I stood in the doorway, my arms crossed, trying to summon the courage to say no. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to let her in, to smooth things over, to go back to being the good daughter. But I'd promised myself I was done with that. "Mom," I said, my voice steady, "I'm not ready to talk. I need space. I need time to figure out what I want." Her face crumpled. "Avery, please. I don't understand what's happening. We've always been a close family. Why are you pushing us away?" "Close?" I repeated. "Mom, you threw a party for a dog on my birthday. You didn't even acknowledge that it was my birthday. You offered me leftover cake, like I should be grateful. That's not what a close family does. That's what a family that doesn't care about me does. "That's not fair," she said. "You know how much Vanessa wanted that party. She's been so stressed lately, and Biscuit brings her so much joy. I thought you'd understand." I felt the anger rise in my chest, hot and sharp. "So Vanessa's feelings always come first? My birthday doesn't matter because Vanessa was stressed about a dog? Do you hear yourself, Mom?" My mother's face hardened. "You're being unreasonable. Vanessa didn't mean to hurt you. She loves you. We all love you. But you're making this into something it's not." I shook my head slowly. "You don't get to tell me what this is. You don't get to tell me how I feel. I've spent my whole life letting you do that, and I'm done." I closed the door. I could hear her calling my name through the wood, but I didn't open it. I leaned against the door, my heart pounding, tears streaming down my face. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but it was also the most necessary. Over the next few weeks, I started to rebuild my life. I leaned into my friendships, spending more time with Allison and the other people who actually saw me. I started a new hobby. Pottery, something I'd always wanted to try but never made time for. I took a solo weekend trip to a small coastal town, walking along the beach and watching the waves crash against the shore. I felt for the first time in my life like I was the main character of my own story. The phone calls from my family dwindled. My mother still called once a week, but I let them go to voicemail. My father sent a few texts, half-hearted attempts to bridge the gap. Vanessa's messages had stopped entirely. I knew they were talking about me, probably saying the same things they'd always said. That I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too difficult. I didn't care anymore. Their opinions had lost their power over me. Then came the text from my father that changed everything. It was brief, almost clinical. "Avery, your mother and I would like to see you. We need to talk about something important. Please come to dinner on Saturday." It's about the family trust. The family trust. I'd almost forgotten about it. When my grandparents passed away, they'd left a modest sum of money to be divided among their grandchildren. My father was the executor. I'd always assumed I'd receive my share when I turned 35, but I'd never thought much about it. It wasn't enough to change my life, but it was enough to matter. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to see them, but something told me I needed to hear what they had to say. Maybe it was closure. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the part of me that still hoped, foolishly, that they'd finally see me. On Saturday, I walked into my parents' house for the first time in 2 months. Everything looked the same. The same photos on the walls, the same furniture, the same scent of potpourri and lemon cleaner. But I was different. I was no longer the woman who'd walked through these doors hoping to be seen. I was someone else entirely. My mother was in the kitchen, pretending to cook. My father sat in the living room, his face serious. Vanessa wasn't there. I'd expected her to be, but maybe my parents had decided to keep this meeting between the three of us. "Have a seat, honey," my mother said, gesturing to the table. "We need to talk about something important." I sat down slowly, not sure what to expect. My father cleared his throat. "Your mother and I have been discussing the family trust," he said. "We've decided to make some changes. With everything that's happened recently, we think it's for the best." My heart started to pound. "What kind of changes?" He avoided my eyes. "We're going to redistribute the money. Vanessa has been struggling financially, and she has Biscuit now. He has medical expenses," and I held up my hand. "Wait, you're going to give my inheritance to Vanessa because her dog has medical expenses?" My mother jumped in, her voice quick and defensive. "Avery, you've always been so independent. You have a good job, a nice apartment. You don't need the money the way Vanessa does. We thought you'd understand." I stared at them. My parents were taking my inheritance and giving it to my sister because she needed money for her dog, because they'd decided once again that Vanessa's needs were more important than mine. They'd framed it as a kindness, a reasonable solution to a family problem. But I saw it for what it really was. "You're punishing me," I said slowly, "because I didn't come to the party, because I stopped being the good daughter who takes whatever scraps you give her. You're taking my money and giving it to her because I refuse to be invisible anymore." "That's not true," my mother said, her voice wavering. "Then what is it?" I demanded. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've always put her first. Even now. Even after everything. And I'm tired of pretending that's okay." My father spoke up, his voice low and measured. "Avery, we love you. We love you both. But we have to do what's best for the family." "Your family," I said, standing up. "Not me. You've made that very clear. But here's the thing. I don't need your money. I never did. What I needed was to matter. To be seen. And you've shown me very clearly that I don't." I walked out of the house without looking back. I didn't cry when I left my parents' house. I'd spent too many tears on them already. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. A strange, quiet peace. The kind of peace that comes when you finally stop fighting for something that was never yours to begin with. I walked to my car and sat in the driver's seat for a long moment, staring at the house through the windshield. The lights were on in the kitchen, casting a warm glow across the front yard. I could see my mother's silhouette moving behind the curtains. She was probably already on the phone with Vanessa, telling her the good news. The inheritance had been secured. The dog's medical expenses would be covered. Everything was going according to plan. I started the engine and drove away. The next few weeks were strange. I'd expected to feel devastated, but instead I felt relief. The weight I'd been carrying for 32 years had finally been lifted. I was no longer the good daughter, the reliable one, the woman who sacrificed her own needs for a family that didn't value her. I was just me, and for the first time in my life, that felt like enough. I threw myself into my work, my hobbies, my friendships. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I took a watercolor class at the community center and discovered a talent I'd never known I had. I started cooking elaborate meals for myself, Experimenting with recipes I'd always been too busy to try. I spent weekends exploring the city, visiting museums and galleries and parks I'd never taken the time to see. I was building a life that was entirely my own, and then, about a month after the confrontation at my parents' house, I got a call from my Aunt Patricia. She was my father's sister, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who'd always treated me with more warmth than my mother ever had. We'd never been close exactly, but she'd always been kind. She was the one who'd sent me birthday cards when my parents forgot. She was the one who'd called to check on me after my grandmother died. She was the one who'd always seemed to see me, even when no one else did. "Avery," she said, her voice unusually serious. "I need to tell you something." I sat down on my couch, my heart starting to race. "What is it, Aunt Patricia?" "Your mother called me yesterday. She told me about the trust." She paused, and I could hear her taking a deep breath. "She also told me you walked out. I have to say I was proud of you." It takes a lot of courage to stand up to her, but that's not why I'm calling. I waited. Something in her voice told me this was important. "Your grandmother left you something," she said. "Something separate from the trust. She asked me to hold on to it until you were ready." "Ready for what?" "Ready to see it. She knew your mother would try to take it from you. She knew your mother had plans, so she gave it to me instead. It's a small box, personal items, and a letter. I've been waiting for the right time to give it to you." I felt a lump form in my throat. My grandmother had passed away almost 10 years ago, and I'd always felt a special connection to her. She was the only person in my family who'd ever made me feel truly loved. I'd been heartbroken when she died, but I'd never thought she'd left me something separate from the trust. My mother had always handled the details of the will, and I'd never questioned it. "Can I see it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Of course, honey. I'll bring it to you. But I should warn you, some of what's in there might be hard to read. Your grandmother had some things to say about your mother, things she never said out loud." My aunt arrived at my apartment the next evening. She carried a small wooden box, worn and faded with age, tied with a ribbon that had once been a deep burgundy. She handed it to me with a solemn expression. "Take your time," she said, "and call me if you need anything." She left me alone with the box. I sat on my couch, turning the box over in my hands. It was heavier than I'd expected, the wood smooth from years of handling. I untied the ribbon slowly, savoring the moment. This was the last gift my grandmother would ever give me. I wanted to remember every detail. Inside, I found a collection of treasures. A faded photograph of my grandmother as a young woman, her hair swept up in a style from a bygone era. A small silver locket that I remembered her wearing every day. A bundle of letters tied with string. And at the bottom, a sealed envelope with my name written in her elegant handwriting. I opened the letter with trembling hands. "My dearest Avery," it began. "If you're reading this, then I'm gone. And I've chosen to trust you with the truth." I read the letter 3 times. Each time, the words hit me like a wave, washing away the carefully constructed narrative I'd believed my entire life. My grandmother wrote about my mother's jealousy, about how she'd always resented the bond between her and me. She wrote about the family trust, revealing that my mother had been manipulating it for years, siphoning off small amounts for Vanessa and herself. She wrote about my father's weakness, his inability to stand up to my mother's demands. And she wrote about me, her beloved granddaughter, the one who'd always been too good for the family she'd been born into. "I know you've always felt invisible," she wrote. "I know you felt like you don't matter, but you do, Avery. You matter more than you'll ever know. You have a strength inside you that your mother will never understand, and one day, you'll find the courage to walk away and build a life that's entirely your own. I'm so sorry I won't be there to see it." Tears streamed down my face as I finished reading. My grandmother had seen me. She'd always seen me, and she'd left me proof that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't dramatic, that my feelings were valid. At the bottom of the letter, she included instructions. "In the box, you'll find the deed to a small cottage. It's in your name. I bought it years ago, hoping you'd want to escape from it all someday." I reached into the box and found the deed. It was for a small cottage near the coast, a place I'd visited with my grandmother as a child. I remembered the sound of the waves, the smell of salt air, the feeling of being free. She'd given me an escape route. She'd known I'd need it someday. The next week was a whirlwind of activity. I called my aunt and thanked her. I arranged to take time off work, and I drove to the cottage. It was smaller than I remembered, but it was perfect, nestled among pine trees, with a view of the ocean that took my breath away. The cottage needed work. The roof was leaking, the paint was peeling, and the garden was overgrown, but I didn't care. It was mine. My grandmother had given me a home. I stayed for 2 weeks. I cleaned, painted, and planted flowers in the garden. I walked along the beach every morning, collecting seashells and watching the sunrise. I started writing, filling a notebook with thoughts and stories I'd never told anyone. I felt, for the first time in my life, like I belonged somewhere. When I returned to the city, I was transformed. I had a plan. I was going to keep the cottage and rent it out as a vacation home. I was going to save money and buy my own place. I was going to live the life I'd always wanted, and I was going to cut my family out for good. The final confrontation happened by accident. I'd blocked my mother's number, but she called from my father's phone. I answered without thinking, and the moment I heard her voice, I knew I had to end this once and for all. "Avery," she said, her tone clipped and cold, "we need to talk. I've been trying to reach you. You're being incredibly disrespectful." "Mom," I said, my voice steady, "I'm going to say this once. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to see you, and I don't want to be part of this family anymore." There was a long pause. "You don't mean that," she said. "You're upset. You're not thinking clearly." "I've never been clearer in my life," I said. You've spent 32 years making me feel like I don't matter. You've taken everything from me. My birthday, my inheritance, my dignity. And I'm done letting you do it. Avery, I am your mother. You're not a mother, I said, cutting her off. A mother loves her children equally. A mother doesn't pick favorites. A mother doesn't steal from one child to give to another. You've never been a mother to me. You've just been someone I had to survive. I hung up. I blocked my father's number too. And then I sat on my couch, my hands shaking, and let myself feel everything I'd been suppressing for years. The anger, the grief, the relief, it all came pouring out. The next morning, I got the news. My mother had called my aunt furious, demanding that she fix this. My aunt, bless her heart, told my mother exactly what she thought of her, and then she called me. She's livid, my aunt said, laughing. She's never had anyone stand up to her like that. Good for you, Avery, I smiled. Thanks, Aunt Patricia. I couldn't have done it without you. You could have, she said. You were always stronger than you knew. Your grandmother knew it, I knew it, and now you know it too. Life went on. I sold my apartment and bought a small house near the cottage. I worked remotely, spending long weekends by the sea. I adopted a cat named Olive and started a vegetable garden. I fell in love with a man named David, a quiet, kind artist who painted landscapes and made me laugh. We moved in together, and he loved me in a way that made me believe I was worthy of love. I didn't think about my family often. When I did, it was with a strange mix of pity and indifference. They were still out there, playing their games, believing they were the heroes of their own story. But their story didn't include me anymore. I'd written myself out of it. On my 35th birthday, I threw a small party at the cottage. David was there, and Allison, and a handful of friends who'd become family. We ate good food, drank wine, and danced on the deck as the sun set over the ocean. It was everything I'd ever wanted. It was the birthday I'd always deserved. And then, at the end of the night, when everyone had gone home, I sat on the beach and looked up at the stars. I thought about my grandmother, about the letter she'd left me, about the strength she'd seen in me long before I'd seen it in myself. I thought about the little girl who'd tried so hard to earn love from people who'd never been capable of giving it. I thought about the woman I'd become, a woman who knew her worth, who set boundaries, who chose herself. I thought about my mother and Vanessa and the family I'd left behind. I thought about the inheritance they'd taken, the party they'd thrown, the years of invisibility I'd endured, and I realized that none of it mattered anymore. They'd tried to break me, but they'd only made me stronger. I stood up, brushed the sand off my clothes, and walked back to my cottage. Olive was waiting by the door, and David was inside making tea. The lights were warm and inviting, and I felt something I'd never felt before. Complete. My family had given me nothing, and in return I'd given myself everything.